Well, I'm glad you can do this for everyone. So thank you.
Mhm.
So Michelle, tell me about Nala. How old? What breed? What she was all about.
Nala was a 12-year-old Shih Tzu, and I feel like she picked me. Like I did not pick her. Actually, when I went to the pet store, I got her from a pet store.
Hmm.
Um, I went in there looking for a Boston Terrier, and they didn't have any. And so I just happened to be walking by, and I was with my boyfriend at the time. And we were walking past the rows of cages, and they had like a glass partition. So you
Hmm.
couldn't actually like touch them or anything like that. And so, we were just walking by, and he said, "Look at that one." And she was in this cage, and she had put her paw up on the front door, like she was waving. And I was like, "Oh, that's cute." And I have a weird thing about boy dogs.
Hmm.
And I was like, "Well," so I asked the girl working, I said, "Is that a male or a female?" And she said it was a female. And I was like, "Oh, can I see her for a minute?" And she was like, "Yeah." And they had these little rooms that you could go take them into and play with them or whatever. So we went in that little room, and I was like, "Oh, I really like her. She just had a really good personality." And so that was it. We took her home that day. And it was
How
funny because
old was she then?
um, she was, she was really young, like 6, 8 weeks, something like that.
The 12, and she was 12.
Yeah. And it was funny because I had told the kids when I left that I was going to go get a Boston Terrier. And I said, if I get a dog and I come home without one, if I get a dog and come home, we're having pizza. If I don't get a dog, then I'm cooking. And so when I walked in the door, I had pizza, and they were like, "Where's the dog? Where's the dog?" And so then I had her out, and they were like, "Oh," because they weren't expecting this little fuzzball. And she kind of looked like a little Ewok from Star Wars.
Hmm.
And so they were like, "Oh." And then I told them, I said, "Well, we're going to have to come up with a name for her." And all of my boys had N names. All of their first names start with N. And so one of my kids said, "What about Nala?" And I was like, "Oh, I really like that." And so my second oldest boy actually is the one that picked out Nala for her. So that's
And
how she came to be Nala.
what was to describe her personality for us?
Um, she liked everyone. Like anyone that came over, she's your best friend, because if you came over here, then chances are like you're just going to sit around, we're going to talk. Well,
Hmm.
she would go to that person because you're not going to pay attention to her, but so she can climb up in your lap, and you're going to absent-mindedly pet her. And she knew that. So
Hmm.
she's going to sit next to the new person and get petted the whole time.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
she would do that to everyone. Just sit there and just let you pet her forever. She really liked to have her tummy rubbed. So it's the weirdest thing because she would just turn into this pile of goo.
Hmm.
If it even looked like you were going to turn her to her back, she would just melt. She
Hmm.
just loved it so much. Um, and like my other dogs just turn into this stiff board, and they're just really awkward if you're trying to rub their belly or turn them over at all. Not her. She just always, and it would drive me crazy if I tried to brush her hair because she would immediately roll over. I'm like, I don't want to brush your belly. I want to brush your back.
Hmm.
Stop it.
Let's can you get on to hold on one second. So let's get to you had been going to Canine Design there in Lincoln, Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
For 12, is it Danetta Johnson? She's the owner.
I don't know what her last name is, but I know that she's
That
the owner.
is the
Danetta's the
owner.
owner.
And you'd been going there for 12 years.
Nala had never been to any other groomer.
So the whole time that you had her, Nala was going to Canine Design.
Yeah. Because when I got her, I lived in that area. And so I had, checked around, and I was like, well, this is close. And so we'll just go there. And so we started going there. And it's funny because when I first went, I didn't like to leave her anywhere. And so I thought, she's really comfortable with me. I think I could do this myself.
Mm.
So I bought all this stuff and I was going to groom her myself. No, she was not having it at all.
Mm.
And after a really botched haircut where only part of her got shaved, I thought, yeah, I'm going to stick to letting professionals do this. And so then I just took her back again.
But the thing is, with most professionals, as we would say, or groomers, it's been my experience that they don't let you go back in the back with
They
them,
don't.
with your pup. I've had one who has let me go, but that's the difficulty. I know with
Mhm.
me. And do you share that same difficulty? It's like, I'm, hey, this is my four-legged family member. And I am giving them
Right.
to you.
You can't even see back there.
No.
Yeah.
And how difficult, I mean, did the thought ever come to mind where something bad could happen?
Not like that. I used to worry that they weren't being nice, because I had seen things where people were smacking the dogs, not there, but like, stories and things online where people are smacking dogs or, like rough with them, pulling their hair, because
Yeah.
they're not, moving their head just right or whatever, like grabbing them by the chin hair and just jerking their heads and stuff. And so I was, that was always in the back of my mind, what if they're not being so nice? Because I'm not mean to my dogs or, strike my dogs or anything like that. And so, that always worried me because I don't want my dogs. They're just there to get a haircut. They're not there to be abused.
And they can't tell you afterwards, obviously,
Exactly.
this happened.
Exactly.
And you
So
don't,
like, right. And I always like pay attention, are they scared when I come in? And Nala is not a big fan of riding in the car ever. Where like, my one of my dogs, all you have to say is, do you want to go for an RIDE? And she's all about it. But Nala, like you'd have to carry her. I had her slip out of her collar one time when I was trying to take her to the car just on a leash.
hmm,
She pulled her head completely out of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know,
take, take
she
me,
hated.
take me
Yeah.
back, take me back to January 29th.
So I always schedule their appointments every 8 weeks,
Hmm.
regardless, because Canine Design is busy. And I don't want to be one of those people that their hair needed cut 2 weeks ago and I'm panicking because they're getting matted or whatever. And I'm trying to, squeeze them in. And I don't want to make three different appointments to get them in, and be running back and forth all the time. Because that's the other thing is I moved across town
Hmm.
like 6 years ago. But because Nala had been going there the whole time and she was comfortable with them, I didn't want to switch groomers
Hmm.
because I thought, well, that might be traumatic for her. And I trusted them. So I continued to drive her all the way across town to get her haircut. So I
Let's
scheduled it.
revisit. Let me revisit that for a minute. For a minute, you said you trusted them,
Yep. I referred people to them. Like I have never thought a bad thought about them.
and then that day, we know from before that you got a phone call. Did the owner call you?
Yes. She called me and like at first, I didn't think anything of it. I thought she was calling to tell me, one of the dogs had a scratch on them or something, or they cut one of their toenails too short, whatever, something like that. And she called and said there was a problem with Nala. And I first thought maybe it was my back door opens and then you go down the stairs and they're always waiting right by the back door.
Mhm.
And Nala's the one that barks for everybody to come in. She
Mhm.
barks and then I go open the door. And so she's always the first one in. And sometimes when I'm trying to open the door, she does not wait. And so she comes running in before that door gets open and she'll scratch her back on the underside of the door.
Right.
And sometimes she'll scratch it open. And so I thought, well, maybe she has a sore on her back that they're calling to tell me that they nicked or something with the clippers. So she called and said that she was calling because there was a problem with Nala. And I was like, okay. And she said, first time she said, Brianna, which is her daughter, turned her back on her for a second while she was in the tub. And I was like, okay.
For a
And
second.
yeah, it turned her back, not left the room. And
Okay.
I said, okay. And she said, and like she kept pausing in between, each sentence. And she said, and Nala jumped out of the tub. And I said, okay. And like my mind is, racing and I'm thinking, oh, great. Nala broke her leg. And I said,
Catastrophizing all the way to the end.
right.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And then she started talking really fast. And she says, we tried everything to get her back. And I was like, what? Like everything then just like came crashing really fast to me. And I was like, she died? And she said, we really did try everything. And I said, Nala's dead? And she said, yes. And I was like, you killed my dog? And she said, yes. And I was like,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You said
what?
you killed my dog and she said yes?
Yes. And then like I just kept saying it over and over. Like it just was not sinking in. I just could not believe it. Like she's gone. And then it was getting more hysterical, I guess, because I kept getting louder and was like, you killed my dog. And she kept repeating herself, we really did try everything. And I I hung up on her because I was working and, I had jumped up out of my chair when she said, when it first hit me that Nala was gone. And I called someone and said, Nala died at the groomer. I need to go get her. Can you give me a ride? And then I was like, what am I supposed to do with her? Like, I can't bring her here. Like, what do I do with her if I brought her here? Like, where do I take her? So I called my vet and they said, we don't do cremation here. We use this other company. And I tried to call them and got their answering service. I left a message. And so I went to go get her. And then that's when I was told that Brianna left to go get a brush. And I was like, okay, because when she said she turned her back on her and she said she jumped out of the tub, I thought, okay, well, she just turned her back, then
She
she
put her
turned
right
around
back
and
in.
grabbed her, right? I mean, why wouldn't you grab her if because her nails would have scratched the tub. You would have heard her get it. She's not a gazelle. She didn't just leap out and there was no sound.
She's like this.
Yeah. And then when she said she hung herself, I was like, what? Like, how does that happen? And
She told you your dog hung herself.
yeah, she said she hung herself. And I was like, what?
How?
Right. And there was, when I got there to pick her up, there was 3 people that I saw working there. Like, and that place is not very big. Like, where was everyone? And then I found out later there was actually 4 people working. I'm like, no one heard anything? You were that busy? I mean, where was everyone at?
What does that lead you to believe?
Well, um, after I shared her story on Facebook, I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and someone reached out to me and said that she used to be a groomer there, and she said that it is their practice that they will leave the dog soaking in the
Mm.
tubs, and they will start on another dog and leave them back there. That is common practice for canine design.
Hmm. That was the
And
former groomer who worked there who told you that.
yes.
And do you think that person would have any kind of reason to tell you that, to say defame the business or anything like that?
Well, I don't know her.
Okay.
She's a complete stranger that just reached out to me, so I
Okay.
don't know if she does or not.
Hmm.
And what I don't know what she would have to gain by telling me that.
So that she said that they soak in the tub
Mhm.
or
And one of the things that they had said to animal control was that Nala had dandruff and that they were soaking her because she had flakes. And I was like, I have never seen a flake on her.
Mhm.
Like, I don't, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I try to make everything make sense to me. Like, tell me how this happened because I can't stop thinking about it. Like, why was she back there? And why were you out of the room for so long? Because she said she went to go get a brush that she was going to use to get the flakes out. But I never saw a flake on her ever.
Mm.
In 12 years, I've never seen a flake on her. And she told animal control that she admitted to being out of the room for more than 5 minutes,
For
which would
more
make
than
more
5 minutes.
for more than 5 minutes, which would make more sense to the person that said they start on another dog. And then the other thing is, all 3 of my dogs were scheduled with her to be groomed. And when I picked them up, because I said when I was there to get Nala that I'm taking all of my dogs. Um, one of my dogs was partially groomed. She had her back was shaved, but her face and her tail had not been cut yet. And so then I thought, well, was she working on her name's Pelucia? Was she working on Pelucia when Nala died? And that's why she's not finished? Because I can't imagine that after Nala died, she started on her because that just doesn't make sense to me. Because when she brought Nala out, she was crying. Well, how did you shave my other dog if you were crying over Nala? Either that or those tears were fake
Mm.
because you stopped crying and then you shaved Hey Lucia and then you started crying to bring my dog out.
But the bottom line here is that Brianna, the groomer, admitted that she had been out of the room for at least 5 minutes when she was grooming Nala.
Yes. When she was giving her a bath.
Hmm.
Yes.
Is that
Because
standard practice?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
Mm.
When I took Nala, so I took Nala to the first cremation place, and they have a sign on the door that says they have an elderly person that's more than 80 years old, so they don't allow you inside, and so you have to leave your pet in a plastic tote outside and leave a note with them. And I was not leaving her in a tote outside. And so it said that you could call this number and someone would meet you to take your pet. And so I did that and I got the answering service again. And I was just really upset. And I was just not, this was not how I was going to leave her. I
Mm.
just was not leaving her outside.
Yeah.
So I called this other vet and I took her there. And they said, yes, we do cremation here. And when I took her there, I asked the vet if he would examine her
Mhm.
because I wanted to know if her neck was broken, because I thought that would give me peace if she jumped out of the tub and broke her neck, because then I know that she died immediately. And so she was examined by that vet, and he said no. He said her neck was not broken.
Her neck was not broken, meaning she didn't hang herself.
No, she did hang herself,
Didn't hang
but
herself.
it didn't snap her neck, so she didn't die immediately.
It was a painful.
She suffocated.
Mm.
So then I said, well, and it makes it worse that I know that now. Instead of it being better that her neck was broken and then I would have that piece that she died immediately, I have the opposite, knowing that she didn't. Because then I said, well, how long does it take to suffocate? And he said, it takes a couple minutes to suffocate. So I know that she suffered and she was alone for the last few minutes of her life.
Mm. On a routine trip to the groomer.
Just to get a haircut.
How are you feeling right now? I'm can only imagine it hasn't really set in yet.
Um, I feel crazy because I cry a lot. My dogs don't know what to do because I waited 8 years before I got another dog.
Mm.
And Nala was really mad.
Mm.
She was so mad. But the kids had moved out, and with work and stuff, she was here alone a lot. And I thought, well, I'm going to get her a friend.
Mm.
And so I got Pelusha, and for 6 months, she would not have anything to do with that dog.
Mm.
Every time, and she's really tiny, and I had to get stairs for her to get up on the couch. And Nala knew, I can just go to another piece of furniture, and this little brat can't get up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so she would do that a lot. And I have my son's dog because he's currently deployed.
Mm.
And so when I got her, oh, probably 2 to 3 weeks before he got out of basic training. And so we were potty training her. And then the stink eye I got from her when I brought her into the house, she was like, oh my gosh, because it was like 6 months after I got Pelusha. She was like, another puppy. So she just had a really hard time, adjusting to these puppies in the house. And then, after about 6 months, she got used to Pelusha and, started playing with her and stuff. And so now, like, these two don't know what to do. They're just so lost. Nobody wants to go outside. They're just like, what? And they don't get excited in the morning. We have a routine where they come inside from going to the bathroom and we do the probiotics, and then they get a treat. They don't get excited anymore because Nala was the one that was mouthy. She was barking for, it's my turn, it's my turn, it's my turn. And they just kind of hang back like, we don't know what we're doing. Even though it's the same routine every single day, they still just hang back, and I have to like call them to me, come on guys, it's time to get your treat, and like when they would do treats, I would give Nala hers, and then, Pelusha, she's so tiny, when she barks, her front feet come off the ground,
Mm.
and she doesn't even bark. Like, she doesn't bark for her treats anymore. It's everything's different.
So you said the dogs don't know what to do without Nala.
Yeah, like they don't have a leash.
What about you? Do you know what to do?
I feel like people they try to compare it to having their dog put to sleep,
Mm.
and it's not the same thing. Like, I didn't tell her goodbye.
Mhm.
I was on my way to work, so I just hurried, took him to the groomers and was like, see you later, not knowing that that was going to be the last time. And I feel like it's my responsibility to protect them. And I didn't do my job.
It sounds like you're blaming yourself.
A
Why would
little,
why do you blame yourself when this happened at the groomer and nothing had ever happened in those 12 years before that and it happened there?
because I've been thinking for 6 years that I needed to find a different groomer on this side of town.
Mhm.
So now I'm like, if I would have done that, that wouldn't have happened. And she would still be here.
What do you say? What do you say to the owner of that shop right now?
I don't really have anything to say to them.
Do you want them held responsible? Do you want them, what can they do, if anything, to make this up?
I know that they won't. I don't think that Brianna should work with animals.
Mm,
And since I think that since you can't physically watch them groom your pets, you can't go back there. I think that groomers should have cameras.
mm,
They don't have cameras back there. I think that groomers should have cameras back there, and that you, as a person who's paying for their services, should be able to watch from your phone or your computer or whatever what's going on back there, to give you peace of mind that they're not abusing your animal, they're not leaving them unattended. I don't see what the harm is. If you're a professional and you're doing everything that you should do, then why can't I watch you do it?
mm. And what about the harness? You had talked about that. Why use a leash? Because the leash was too small on Nala.
Right,
Why
right,
not use a harness? That's what you had suggested when you
right.
talked.
I mean, just to give a bath. I mean, I understand that if you're trying to groom a dog, a harness would not work because you need to shave them. But
Mhm.
if you're going to put them in the bath, why can't you use a harness? Or if you're going to need to walk away, I don't care if you're going to go get a brush. Why can't you have someone come in there, or you have a harness on them?
The thing that I hear, and I know this just happened. I don't think I'd even be able to do an interview if if this just happened with me. I hear the sadness. I don't hear any anger, or maybe you're disguising that anger. Maybe it's not there yet. Maybe it
I
won't
was
come.
I was really angry when I first heard about it. Um, about, I'm going to sue them. They can't do this to me. But I'm disgusted that they can just continue like nothing happened. Because when they brought Nala out to me, they had a towel around her. It was on about at her waist. So the upper part of her was out. Her eyes were open. Her tongue was blue and was hanging out of her mouth. And I took her and sat down on the window ledge and just cried. And they had customers coming in and they were talking like I was not crying my eyes out with my dead dog in my lap.
Mm.
Like it was business as usual.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I was mad that like nothing was happening,
Hmm.
but I guess there's nothing that they can do
To bring her back.
to bring her back.
But what can they do? I guess that's it. There's nothing they can do to bring her back, but can they? I guess let's take it to where you wanted. We were talking offline before. This, for Nala not to have died in vain, this can serve as a lesson to others. Last night, the video, I talked in the video about could this have been prevented? What do you want people to know about? What do you want people to know about when they take their dog or other animal, if you will, to the groomer?
Well, I had to take my dogs, the other two dogs, because Pelusia was half groomed
Mm-hmm.
and Fantaria had not been groomed yet.
Right.
So I had to find a new groomer, and I took them, to a new groomer, and we talked because I uh, have a little PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I had a panic attack in front of the place. I was like, I don't know if I can do this, but I already know that I can't groom them myself. So, I just said, please don't leave them unattended on an elevated surface with any sort of leash, tether, whatever you guys want to call it. I don't care what you call it, anything around their neck. And they said, we saw the post, and, we ourselves are evaluating how we do things, like this is a wake up call for us. And so I want all groomers to think about how they practice. Are you guys leaving dogs on? Because it's not just the tub.
Mm-hmm.
They use those, and they're not even like a full collar. They're just a loop around their neck. I mean, it literally is a noose.
Mm-hmm.
They use those on the tables. And I had someone tell me that they have had big dogs try to jump away from them, and they've dislocated their shoulders catching them. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't just Nala being left unattended. Like, this
Right.
happens while the dogs are in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be changes made that this doesn't happen to other people. Because I can't believe that Nala's the only one that this has happened to. And I don't see why they don't have cameras back there.
Where do you go from here?
I don't know.
Grief's grief for life,
Maybe.
like losing a family member.
And I think some people don't get it. They're like, oh, it's just a dog.
Mm. Nah.
It doesn't feel like just a dog.
It was your daughter for 12 years. And then,
Yep. And she loved me unconditionally. Like it didn't matter.
mm, nothing could have prepared you for this.
Definitely not.
Mm.